Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend a few moments with me here on SML TV. I know, I know the internet is all blurry and I can't stand that. And I'm so sorry that it's that way, but that's just the way that it is. It's the internet connection. I have finally figured this out. The only time I get clear, unhindered connection is first thing in the morning between 7 and 9:30 a.m. Anytime after that, it is an absolute complete disaster. But they tell you in the vlogging space, they tell you that we can get away with bad picture, but we can't get away with bad sound. So as long as you can hear me, I would be grateful if you could stick around with me for just a few moments. I won't be long. I know it's late. It's 8 o'clock. I'll try and wrap this up in the next 15, 20 minutes max. So please bear with me. The picture quality is not so good, but the sound is perfect. Thank you for being with me. A few shout outs before we begin. Hello, Eric Rogers. Hello to you guys. Thank you so much. Ellie Kays, thank you. Thank you for watching. Boss, you once explained this. He says, you've explained this before. Okay, guys, real quick, let me break down today's event. I know it's been trending all over social media. It's just the way that it is because, as you know, the former First Lady, Esther Lungu, was scheduled to appear before the D.E.C. for questioning, and she did. And she did this amidst a lot of chaos and confusion and a lot of flurry and a lot of contention. And I must also point out here that it was PF's behavior today was indicative of who they've always been. Oh, let me say that again, because I need that to sink in. For those of you that know the character of the Patriotic Front, you know that everything they said, everything they exhibited, everything they portrayed, everything they projected, everything they revealed was indicative of the true nature of who they are. And what is the true nature of the Patriotic Front? The true nature of the Patriotic Front is one of chaos. The true nature of the Patriotic Front is one of confusion. The true nature of the Patriotic Front is one of confrontation. The true nature of the Patriotic Front is one of conflagration. And I was not surprised at all by their behavior. And you remember when Tutwa Ngulube, when he showed up, Tutwa Ngulube, who is the personification of arrogance, a man that thinks that he's the be-all and end-all. I mean, he showed up thinking he was Thor. He showed up on the scene like he was wielding one of those Thor hammers, and he began to utter the words, "Who is in charge of this nonsense?" Now, here's my question. Many of you may ask the question, well, what did he mean by that when he said, "Who is in charge of this nonsense?" What he actually meant was, who is in charge of the work of the police? That was Tutwa Ngulube's way of belittling, demeaning, diminishing, disparaging the office of the police. Now, guys, I know more than anybody. I know that the police are not perfect, okay? I know that from experience. I've dealt with the police many, many times, and I know that they're not perfect. Every so often, you'll come across a police officer that has a sense of duty, a police officer that is professional. But by and large, even though the police are imperfect, by and large, the job of the police is to maintain law and order. Can you imagine what life would be for a moment if we didn't have any police officers? Do you know how close we would come as a society to absolute bedlam, to absolute chaos, to absolute mayhem? So the role of the police is to maintain order, even though they are not perfect. But here it is, you had Tutwa Ngulube, Oh boy, he showed up thinking he was Thor. He showed up thinking he was the Incredible Hulk. He showed up acting as if he was the be all and end all. He starts to ask, who is in charge of this nonsense? Now, let me tell you, for a man that calls himself a lawyer, I'll tell you what, he didn't act like one. I mean, Tutuan Gulube is the furthest thing from a lawyer that I've ever seen. I mean, Tutuan Gulube should not even, in fact, I'll be honest with you, he should be disbarred. A man who calls himself an officer of the court, a man who refers to himself as a lawyer, acting the way that he acted today, showing up thinking he was Thor and looking at those police officers in uniform, might I add, and saying to the police officers, who is in charge of this nonsense? How dare you, Tutuan Gulube? How dare you demean the work of the police for you to refer to them as nonsense? It's ridiculous. Now, having dealt with the police, and I know this to be true because, you know, I keep telling you guys, this is not my first rodeo. I've lived 53 years and I've dealt with the police. One of the things that I know the police want from us citizens, and this is the basic premise of what the job of the police is. When the police arrive at a scene or on a scene like we saw today, splashed all over social media, where Tutuan Gulube was confrontational with the police, the number one thing that the police want to do in a situation like that is to de-escalate the tension. Let me say that again. The number one priority of the police, the number one priority of law enforcement when they are faced and they are confronted with hooligans like Tutuan Gulube, with vagabonds like the Patriotic Front, with bottom feeders like the notorious Patriotic Front, the number one priority is to maintain peace and to de-escalate the tension. Now, one of the ways that that can be achieved is if you comply. You comply. And I know that's difficult to do sometimes, but the one thing I've always known is that when a police officer asks you to do something, just do it. You are grasping at straws. You are cycling up a creek without a paddle when you begin to be confrontational with the police. Because guess what? You're not going to win that battle. You're not going to win that argument. You're not going to win that confrontation. The number one thing is to comply. And so when Tutuan Gulube, who's supposed to be an officer of the court, for goodness sake, he shows up, he starts ordering the police around. Guess what? The police want you to follow their orders. Why? Because they're the custodians of the peace. They are the crucibles of order. They are. So when the police were telling Tutuan, his band of hooligans, because that's what they are, to follow the instructions, Gulube did not comply. What does it mean to comply? To comply simply means to obey. Do what the police are asking you to do. Because when you do that, you know, things are a lot better when you comply. It becomes very sticky and very complicated when you refuse to comply. So I didn't like the fact that Tutuan Gulube did what he did. And I'll tell you this, that we're not going to hear the end of that. If he thinks that he's going to get away with that type of behavior, being an alleged officer of the court, if he thinks that he can get away with that type of foolishness, well, he's got another thing coming, because that's just not how the law works, okay? The law is not a suit that you can put on at your convenience. The law applies to everybody, okay? So, and then the other thing I wanted to point out, did you guys hear, according to movie TV, apparently, Bowman hints at a presidential bid. Well, as we say in Zambia, one does never cease. Now, let me tell you something about this. Of course, everybody and anybody has the right to vie for the highest office in the land. But you see, in a President Lungu administration, in a President Lungu environment, in a PF environment, people like Bowman Lusambo can be president. In an environment of confusion, in an environment of lawlessness, in an environment of disregard for the law, in an environment of rebellion against authority. I mean, you remember how the PF were. I mean, here, just to give you one simple example, Lusaka City Council was run by PF cadres. Council had no power over anything in the city. Everything was being run by thugs, vagabonds, crooks, and thieves, and bottom feeders. In that environment, someone like Bowman Lusambo can become a president. Why not in this dispensation? When you've got Hakainde Hichilema, who has raised the bar of leadership. I mean, just look at the way the police conducted themselves today. Under PF government, I'm telling you, in that ruckus that was there today, you think people can walk away from that type of confusion if the PF were in power? It's not possible. But because you have a leadership that understands the importance of looking beyond today, that's the reason things did not turn haywire. Do you understand that? Are you hearing that? You guys are cracking me up. I really try as hard as I can not to read the comments, but every so often you have to stop and read, and the comments are a bit distracting. Okay, let me get back to this. I got 5 minutes and then I'll be done. So here it is. Let me show you something else here that was interesting today. Let me tell you, the fight against the corrupt PF must yield results or else. Let me say this again, because this is very important. I'm telling you, if the D.E.C, the ACC, we know that the Patriotic Front did a bunch of stuff that was illegal. We know that. Okay, I mean, that's not rocket science. The writing's on the wall. Everybody knows that. I mean, everybody from a 2-year-old child knows that. Okay. The issue here is to make sure that the D.E.C, the ACC circle the wagons on this issue, and they make sure that they get convictions. And we understand there's a process. We know there's an investigation, there's a charge, there's an arrest, then there's trial, and then ultimately there's a verdict of either guilty or not guilty. We understand that process. But here's the thing, guys. The fight against corruption, the fight against the corrupt PF must yield results, meaning 1 or 2 big fish have to be arrested and sent to prison. Because let me tell you what's going to happen if that doesn't happen. As we approach 2026, do you know the song that the PF are going to be singing? If no solid convictions are garnered, the PF are going to be singing, Mamana, Vale Tufienga, Ifwe Tapadi Afetwachide, Vale Tubepishafi, Vabambalava, Erumone, Vale Tuchusha, they took us everywhere, bothered us, but they found nothing. That is the song they're going to be singing. So here's the thing. The D.E.C and the ACC have to do their job. They have to be like bloodhounds. They've got to snuff them out, boy. Remember when George Bush, when Al-Qaeda first brought down the Twin Towers over there in New York City, 9/11. Remember what George Bush said? He said, we're going to snuff them out. We're going to snuff those terrorists out. That's exactly what D.E.C and ACC have to do. They have to snuff out those PF crooks and take them to task and show them and display them as an example. And if they don't do that, I'm telling you, these PF guys, they're going to sing it. They're going to sing it on the mountaintop. Wakulabuka 6 kolokoro chelo. Mbwana nga twafika 2025, 2026. Wakulabuka 6 kolokoro chelo. Hey, barete bepe shafshe. Tapari yao bahika tapari fuego. Politics. So the bottom line is that and I got to say it again, the fight against the corrupt PF must yield results, or else the Patriotic Front are going to be singing, you mistreated us. You falsely accused us. No. Pull up your socks, D.C. Pull up your socks, ACC. Snuff them out. Snuff them out. Okay? All right. So what's the next one? The last one is, I was listening to Makebi Money Man Zulu, I call him. And here's the thing I find interesting about Makebi Zulu. Makebi spreads himself out so thin that in the end, he will not be effective. What I mean by that is that he's representing everybody and the kitchen sink. And he's just one firm. Here it is, you've got 48,000 different clients. Of course, I'm exaggerating when I say 48,000, but you get the point. Here it is, you've got one law firm, and anytime there's a smidgen, there's a mention, there's a whiff of corruption and one of these PF vagabonds being arrested, guess who comes running? It's nobody else. It's not Tutuan Glube that comes running. It's not some other obscure law firm that comes running. Oh no, honey. Here comes Makebi Money Man Zulu. Every single time there's a PF guy that's been charged, here he comes. Now, here's my concern with that. He is one lawyer, one law firm, and he's spread out too thin. He's got too many clients. And because he's got too many clients, how in the world is he going to effectively represent them? That's my question. How are you going to do that, Makebi? You're spread out too thin, brother. So here it is, Makebi. Makebi comes out and says, well, the former first lady has been interviewed, and it's been established that those properties do belong to her, and anybody with 5 senses, I'm paraphrasing now, anybody with five senses knows that upon conducting a thorough search at the Ministry of Lands, you will then discover and ascertain the owner of those properties, and we know that it's Mrs. Lungu. And then he says, so as far as we're concerned, this matter is closed. Makebi thinks he can just show up like a wand, like he's got a magic wand in his hand and just wave it and then make stuff go away. Makebi, you can't make anything go away. You can't. I mean, Makebi shows up thinking he's some kind of superhero, like some kind of fairy tale angel with a wand, and he waves it like, okay, problems be gone. The matter is closed. Well, Makebi, it's not closed, because let me tell you what the D.E.C has said. This is what the D.E.C said. The D.E.C said the interview with the former First Lady went well. An ordinary statement was recorded. The property is seized, and further investigations are continuing following her explanation. Full stop, D.E.C. Does that sound like this issue's over? It's not. It's got a long road. You guys got a long road ahead of you. Anyway, thought I'd share that with you guys. I got to go home. I can't stand here. I can't sit here and talk to you guys all night. I gotta go home, man. I gotta go home. All right, guys. God bless. Good night.